Okay, good morning. Shin Samach Vav Seif Yudalef we're up to. So now we're going to just finish off this simon and we talk about the actual practicalities. How do you actually make an Eruv Tafshilin? So let's go. Yudalef. B'nei Chabura Shoyim Mesubin Lechol. Very interesting case. You've got a group of people who were sitting down to have a meal. The Kiddush Leim Hayom, and then suddenly it became Shabbos. Hapas Shal HaShulchan Soimchin Oleh Mishum Eruv. The challah that's on the table, the bread that's on the table, that can be used for Eruv Tafshilin. For who shemesumin b'bayis, so long as they're eating in the bayis, shehu mokum haroi lo niachshom Eruv. That's an appropriate place to put an Eruv. Avol b'chotzer lo, but not in a chotzer. V'uadin im yesh lohem pas b'shutfus be'echod min habatim. If they've got jointly owned bread in one of the houses, soimchin olav mishum Eruv, that can count for an Eruv as well. Okay, it says in Mishnah Berurah. It's telling me two things here. Echod, afal gav shleinichu lechatchil l'shem Eruv. Even though it wasn't initially put out l'shem Eruv, nevertheless they're all sitting down. The bnei chotzer are sitting down in one of the houses and they're eating together. That challah can count as the Eruv Chatzeros. Even though that bread wasn't belonging to everyone. It was just belonging to the Balabayas. He invited them to eat with him. And he didn't, he wasn't makne that bread beferish to them. Nevertheless, since he invited them, and they can eat freely, it's as if they've become partners in that bread. They have a zechus in the bread. And therefore, if the bread is there still in existence after Ben Hashmoshes, they can rely on this for the Eruv. This is an interesting shaila. Two things. Number one, it's a famous shaila. If you invite a guest to eat with you, is the food his? So you give him a plate of food, you give him a bowl of chicken soup. Is that yours or his? So the Ma'anaf Kamina, can he be Mekadosh and Isha with that bowl of chicken soup? Now that's the famous question. So, it's a very romantic thing. Hariyam Mekadosh sleep with this bowl of chicken soup. Is it his or not? So that's really what we're talking about over here. But he seems to, the Mishnah is saying that because I've got a zuhi, I invited you, I've got a zuchus in that bread, and therefore it's considered jointly owned bread, and that would work. The second point, if you look at footnote 80, the beginning there, he says a very interesting, relevant, contemporary case. Let's say you're invited, or you're a guest in a hotel, and they've got a 24-hour tea room, right? Right, so you got a tea room with a cake and other things out. You'll be able to rely on that food which is there for your taking, for your use. You're allowed to rely on that Mishum Eruv. Even though the Balabayas, the owner of the hotel, the proprietor, wasn't actually makna this to you, nevertheless you're considered the shutuf in it. He says the Chavetz Chaim, the Chaznish has a different day, but that's one issue. Okay, Ayin Gimel. Pas shel hashulchan lechayre bo'inen sheyeh oz adayin etzlom pas echad shalim. Presumably you've got to have one complete loaf of bread v'chanal b'sivov, or maybe not. Since I've invited you, and therefore dinner doime lohem but lohad sif zayin. In sif zayin we said that if one person is mezakeh to kulam, then you can yochel arav leprusa. You can even have be mezakeh with slices of bread. It doesn't have to be a whole complete loaf. So says the Chavetz Chaim, it's not clear. So does it have to be a pas shalem or not? Not clear. This meal has got to take place in a bayis, not in a chotzer. It's a chotzer lav bas baradirahu. It's not considered the baradira. You don't sleep and reside in the chotzer. You sleep in the house. Din zeh hu v'zu ve'in tzorech lo mezu. V'tosefes Shabbos kosav to call mashmalon to soimchin olav b'cheskas shehu kayom. We assume that the piece of bread is still in existence. Afal pi she'en yodim ba'azon, if they don't themselves know for sure. Mishum demukmin lachas kose. There's a chazaka. Soimchin olav mishum eruv or mishum shitufei mevuos yecholen lismich af kashemunach be'echad min Chatzeros mishum that's the Gemara. Fine. Okay. Yeah. Good. Okay, fine. Okay, good. That's Yud Aleph. Yud Beis. Apotropos shel koton yochel la'arev ba'adai. So you've got a koton who's part of one of the residents in the chotzer, and he has an apotropos, a guardian who's looking after him. Yochel la'arev ba'adai. Says in the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Koton Ein Zayin, afilu mishel koton shlemedaito. The apotropos can take some of the food from the cotton to participate in this Erev Chatzeros, mipnei shehu like ben bais, because the apotropos is like a ben bais of the cotton. Sheyochel la'arev mishel balabais sheloi midaito kamoshi is boy b'simen shin samach zayin. So just like the balabais can, the ben bais can take some of the balabais' food and participate on his account, so too this apotropos for the cotton. Yud Gimel. Mitzvah lachzar acha Erev Chatzeros. Says the Mishnah Berurah, it's a mitzvah. So it's a mitzvah to try and set up an Erev Chatzeros. Why? Because you're preventing an Avera, possibly. People sometimes will carry from one house into the Chatzer, or from one house into the other house, and if there's no Erev Chatzeros, they shouldn't really do this. So by you setting up an Erev Chatzeros, there's a mitzvah to do it. If you look at 84, at the beginning there, he says, "Umetam zeh kosav b'shad shuvas chasm soifa sheyesh gam mitzvah lechaze ach tikun hamavuas v'chatzer sheyu musukonis b'mechitzas kedin kedei shelevo letalza be'isa." So not only making Erev Chatzeros, it's important to make sure that there are proper mechitzas in your front garden to prevent Chilul Shabbos. I've got a feeling this is the Chasam Sofer that the Dayan quoted, and Rabbi Kimchi and others, when they set up the Northwest London Eruv all the years ago, that there is a responsibility on the Rav in town to make an Eruv, because people will carry b'shegeg, or they won't know, or they, visitors, they think there's an Eruv, and therefore there's a responsibility on a person, on the Rav, to make an Eruv. I think that's the quoted Shuv of the Chasam Sofer. It could be that's the one. Okay, Yud Dalet. Mevarech al mitzvahs Eruv. You make a bracha on it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, al mitzvahs Eruv, va'afilu adam acher she'ena dar ba'isa ha'ir v'reitza lishbeis sham b'Shabbos. Even if he just happens to be there for Shabbos, he can make the bracha levarech bracha zu. He can be the one to make the bracha on the Erev Chatzeros. Da'ilu la'irvu ha'yegam hu asel atalta, because he's benefiting. Because if there's no Eruv, then he also wouldn't be able to carry. T'im kain gam hu shaykh al-Eruv. He's also, therefore, he's relevant to this Eruv. Now, sometimes you can have sort of a 2-for-1. You can have Erev Tafshilin and Erev Chatzeros in one shot. You make one bracha on both of them. I think it's how this year we've got Erev Tafshilin, no? Is it Yom Tov is Thursday, Friday? So this year we'll have Erev Tafshilin. So what if you want to do the Erev Chatzeros in one go? You can do that. Dahainu, you would say al mitzvahs eruvin, and referring to both of them. Va'im hanusach bahadein eruva, these eruvin. Al kol echad ve'echad b'fnei nusucha. The correct nusach for each one. V'chayodem klal kufbeis kosav sheyoma al mitzvahs erev tavshilin ve'erev chatzeros. You actually specify both. Va'im bedin yehei sharalon la'fuyei. With this, we will be able to bake. So you make reference to the functions of both. The Erev Tafshilin, that enables us la'fuye, to bake and cook and whatever, and the Erev Chatzeros, the Taltzim Bayis L'Chotzer, to carry from the Bayis to the Chotzer, etc. Good. Okay. Tesvav. So you say make a bracha on mitzvahs Erev, and now the question is, when do you make the bracha? So it says the Mechaber Tesvav, a Mosai Mevarich, when do you make the bracha? B'shah shemekabetz oisai mibnei hachotzer. You make the bracha when you collect all the flour, or the pieces of bread, the loaves of bread from the bnei chotzer, or at the time when you're mezakeh to them. V'omer, and you say the following: Bahadein eruva yehishar lon la'afuke ulayule. With this eruv, we're allowed to take in and take out min habatim lechotzer, from the houses into the chotzer, and lechotzer lebatim, or mibayis lebayis, and from one house to another, lechol habatim shebechotzer, in all the houses of this chotzer. Im gavu ha'eruv v'lo bircholov, if they already collected the eruv and they haven't yet made a bracha, ein habracha makeves u'mutarim netaltel. the bracha is never ma'akev. That's always the rule, and therefore they are still allowed to carry in this from the bais to the chotzer, or vice versa, or from the bais to the bais. Says the Mishnah Berurah Tivkot and Pei. So you've got to try and do it over l'asyason. So you make the bracha, and then you start collecting the bread from every single person. We actually collect flour. In that situation, you don't make a bracha before you collect the flour from all the residents. To have it over the over, it's too early. It's not lifnei iver. Not I said the wrong word. It's mitzvah over l'asyason means just before you do the mitzvah. But there's a concept of over la'over, which means you're doing it too prematurely. It's over la'over. It's before do the mitzvah. Kol zman shelo nefer hapas. That's why, by the way, you sometimes see when you make the bracha on the talis, you take the talis and you're about to, you hold it up and you're about to wrap it around you. You make the bracha then, and then you wrap it out. That's called over l'asyason. But if you take the talis as you're taking it out of the bag and you make the bracha, that's called over la'over. It's too premature. Okay, well, so to over here, if you're collecting flour, you haven't actually baked the challah yet. So baking the bracha then is over la'over. Shemekabetz, Beis Yosef Abach Kosvu, Besimen Shin Tzadihei, the Tzorech Levarich, B'shah Shemaschel Lekabetz, V'lo Mishen Nigma HaKibbutz. You should do it at the beginning and not at the end. Da'os Kvan Nigma HaMitzvah. V'achrenim Eskimu D'yuchel Lechatchil Levarich Achar Shekvan Nigma HaKibbutz. The other Achronim, however, say that actually you can make the bracha after everything has been collected, and the reason is this: Vatam mishum desfir lehu da'achas niskabetz tzorich lachatchila lezakis lechol bnei. Once you've got the challah, which belongs to everybody, you've got to make the kinyan. You've got to be mezakah this to all the residents of the city. Kamishu kasav nel b'sif cotton memhei or mikri adayin over l'asyason, and it's still called over l'asyason kashehu koidem hazikui. You can, even though you've already been mezaked, you can still make the bracha. To ikka kniyas ha'eruv chal be'ez kniyas ha'shabbos, because the actual chalois is the actual trigger, the actual time it kicks in is when Shabbos comes in. Or mikri b'chol gavna over l'asyason, therefore it's still called over l'asyason. Or the prat in the hunach ha'eruv adayim b'mkoimei, especially if you haven't put the bread in the Eruv, in the actual place where it's going to be over Shabbos. It's certainly shaykh levarich. It's certainly okay to make the bracha then. V'lo nigmar adayin ha-mitzvah, and it's not considered the mitzvah's finished now, and you shouldn't make the bracha. It's too late. We don't say that. Interesting. Look at footnote 90. Hainu b'bayis shebo manichin es Eruv. And then he quotes b'seif Pardes l'Rashi Kosov shemevarich rag b'shah shemanich b'makom shomer oy b'teva. That's dafka when you should make the bracha. V'chein pasuk ha-machzavitri. Machzavitri is written by the Talmidim of Rashi, and it's a very famous sefer with all the minhagim Ashkenaz. So he says that, and I think Lamaisa, that's what we do. So we've got the bread together, whether it's you do the kinyan, that now the one loaf of bread belongs to all the residents in the chotzer, and then before you put it in the cupboard where it's going to stay the rest of the Shabbos or the rest till next Pesach or whenever, then you make the bracha. That really seems to be what the Machzavitri says in the name of Rashi. Okay, weiter, pei beis. B'shah shemezakeh lohem. So what's this going on? Yeah, so you make the bracha before you collect all the loaves, as we've said in the Mechaba, or b'shah shemezakeh lohem. Pirush, shema'arev misheloi, v'noisen acherim, you're collecting your own things, your own breads, and then you're mazakeh to other people. V'oim eloi, she'achar she'yivarech, yagbienu kadei sheyazke b'shvil anshe ha'er. After you make the bracha, you make the kinyan, and now this belongs to everybody. And if you make the bracha after you do the kinyan, it's also yesh mi al lismech, like we said above, because it really only kicks in when Shabbos kicks in, so it's still called over l'asyason. And then the nusach is bahadin eruva. In this eruv sharon la'afuki la'yule, we are permitted therefore to take in and take out from the bottom to the chotzer to the batim, etc. L'chol b'habotim shebechotzer. So says the Mishnah Berurah Pei Gimel, v'lo hiskir mavui. Here it doesn't mention the mavui at all. Mishum dekan arish shelo nisaken ha'mavuos be'ervin kedin. Because here we're talking about the Eruv Chatzeros. The Eruv Chatzeros is only going to help you from the bottom into the chotzer, and we're talking about a situation, says the Mishnah Berurah, where you did not fix up the mavui to carry from the chotzer into the mavui. Because all the Eruv Chatzeros enables you to do is to carry from the houses into the chotzer, or vice versa. But when you also have fixed up the mavui, you can do it in one go. K'mavur b'simen shin pei zayin. V'alkein tzarech lahizif by shar yusud demavui. You've got to therefore include the permit to carry from the chotzer into the mavui. V'zeh nuschoi, and this is the correct nusach. Bahadin eruva, with this eruv, yehishara lana, it should be permitted to us, la'apuke ulayule, to take in and take out, minabotim lechotzer, mechotzer lebatim bais lebais. Okay, that's so far the nusach we've used till now. Umechotzer lechotzer, umigag legag, umibatim chatzeros lemavui, umavui lechalabatim chatzeros shebe'ir hazu. Okay, that's the nusach you add if you're also making it for a mavui. Lanu lechol hadarim be'ir hazai, so lechol mishay toisef bey, and anybody else who wants to join in. Fine. V'im ma'ar v'chol ha'shabbos l'hashana, and if you're going to make this eruv for all the shabbos of the year, which is the common practice, and you just sort of change it every sort of erev Pesach, Yisayim, you should conclude lechol shabbos hashana lechol yom tovim. From memory, that in the siddur that's sort of in brackets, but that's what the normal practice is. Okay, now what happens if you did the Eruv and you didn't make a bracha? So the Mechaber said, Ein ha-bracha ma'keves u'mutarim l'taltel. But the bracha is not ma'akev and you can still carry. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Pei Dalet, V'uadin afilu im hanusach bahadin Eruva, gam kein lo yamru alav, even if they didn't say that, kivin shemushutafin be'eruv sagi b'zeh. Since they are sort of connected through this Eruv, that would be sufficient. Okay, Peseda, that's probably a good place to stop.